Shalom everyone. In this recording I'll be talking about poltergeist. Poltergeist is a German word. Polter means noisy and geist means a ghost or a spirit. A poltergeist. Well, English comes from Norwegian, Old German, Latin. English is a mixture of languages. That's why they also have German words that they use in English language. Now, poltergeist. When you hear that word, this is what people mean when they talk about the poltergeist. They talk about some noise or some unexplained movement of objects in the house or some kind of physical activity that cannot be logically explained. Okay, for example, if I'm walking in my apartment, then of course people will hear my footsteps. That's natural. And people downstairs will hear my footsteps if the apartments aren't well as isolated. But what if people hear footsteps but there's no human being at home in the apartment above me? So that's what they call a poltergeist, an unexplained phenomenon that cannot be explained by human activity. See, now look, in this video I'm not going to show you footage of poltergeist and all of that. I'm not doing that. I just want to reveal something to you that you may not have noticed before. If you've noticed it before, then you probably can shut this video down right now. But anyway, I'll continue. We all experienced poltergeist phenomena. We all did. The only issue is most of us were not aware of that it was a poltergeist activity, because first of all, we were often too young to understand what was going on, or if we were a bit older, we had no of spiritual subjects. What are you saying, Rashid? Rashid, are you telling me that I've been through hauntings? Yes, you did. But okay, let me give an illustration, okay? As you guys know of me, I give illustrations, daily illustrations, just to illustrate to you what I mean. Okay, let's say you are 4 years old, or let's say you take a 4-year-old girl. She has a father, of course. The father and her are in a store buying stuff. Okay, and suddenly the father becomes very upset with the young girl, telling her she has to behave. While someone stands by who's also shopping in the store, sees what's going on, and he or she can see that the child did not misbehave at all. The child behaved as any child would do, but the father is so upset. The father even feels threatened by how the child behaved. And let's say this happens a few often. What happens is that father, who does not want to acknowledge his own insecurities and his own inconsistencies, he is now blaming it all on his 4-year-old daughter, and he is lashing out and being harsh and critical towards his 4-year-old daughter. Now, let that child become 10 years old. She'll probably begin to menstruate by this time. She's in her teenage years. She's physically growing into a woman. She is a female, but she's growing to a womanhood. Her womanhood is developing. Now hold on a minute. Her father has been critical of her often, and it's become a pattern for him to deal with his own inconsistency. Now that she's in her teenage years, she often feels threatened when other men are around. And she feels this urge that she has to control men in order to feel safe. Now hold on a minute. This feeling she has is real, and the effects upon her body are real. She gets goosebumps with certain men, and she also mentally she becomes shut down. So there are real physical effects upon her, and also her health is in danger. So what she's feeling is not just something between her head. Okay? But now she cannot explain why she feels this urge to control other men. And let's say she turns 20, she's in college. Now, the other women at the college will notice about her that she has this urge, this manipulative urge to get to take to force people to conform to her. They cannot explain why. But the thing is, when she was 4 years old and her father became overly critical towards her in public, what happened was she was charged with the negative energy of that father. And now this happened often, and physically she became attached to that tension. Because if you're subjected to psychic attacks over and over again without you being able to protect to be protected, or without you being able to run away, if you're subjected to negative energy often, your body becomes attached to that negative energy. Okay? And now she now has a poltergeist. She has an unclean spirit and a demon that is attached to that negative energy, and that demon is haunting her. But she does not know that it's a demon haunting her. She's not aware of it, she's illiterate about spiritual things. She thinks that it's those other men around that want to do something to her. And then during high school she learned about feminism and all the myths about male oppression. So now, during high school, she learned a mythology they call feminism. By the way, I'm not talking about movements by women to free women from oppression. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about that myth that women were oppressed throughout history by men, and now women have to fight against men to be treated well. That bullcrap I'm talking about. She also hears all kinds of stuff that women shouldn't have children, women have to prove themselves towards men. All this brainwashing she received. And now the brainwashing she received now is a cover-up that validates her suspicion of other men. And now she really thinks that men are oppressive towards women. Why? Because she's been brainwashed. And of course there are some men that indeed abuse women, but it doesn't mean that men in general are by definition abusers of women. But she's deceived. And the reason why that feminist ideology could have taken hold of her was because there was an open wound in which the deception could flow. And that demon that was haunting her made sure that she kept being reminded of that ideology. She's 25. She's unable to form stable friendships with other women. She also has dated quite some men, but after a few times sex, she dumps them. She cannot bind with them. She cannot be in a healthy relationship. And now she begins to ask, what's going on? What the heck is going on here? And of course, she takes responsibility for how she's treating others. She does. She's not denying it anymore. She takes responsibility. And now she decides to visit a Christian friend of hers who still want anything to do with her despite her being so negative. And that Christian friend of her, it's a female friend, but she's a believer. They pray together. After prayer, the woman feels relieved. And by the way, she became a believer also, began to agree with Christ. Now listen, the moment she agreed with Christ, that stronghold had to go. That demon had to leave. But Watch this. She's in agreement with Christ, but hold on a minute. Since she was 4 years old till now 25, that's about 21 years, that negativity binded her to certain relationships. She also made her own choices later in life, like sleeping with diverse men and then dumping them. So she has generated a whole network of psychic flows. She has negative soul ties with others. So that network is still there. So what happens now, that demon that had to leave will do whatever he can to return back. So now for the next few years in her lifetime, she encounters all kinds of people that are upset with her, people that talk behind her back. All kinds of things are going wrong. She is about to lose her job. Well, before, she used to be very bitchy and all of that, and people just took it. People never bothered with it. But the thing is, now that she's delivered, those other evil spirits are being upset with it. So now they're acting their upsetness to other people. That's a poltergeist. But the thing is, she already had a poltergeist when she was 4 years old. But she couldn't explain it. Thing is, the poltergeist was not dealt with. And because it wasn't dealt with, it became worse and worse. It began to grow and grow. When she became delivered, after a few years, she began to understand what's going on. And she forgave her father. But she decided to cut off her father from her life. Why? Because that man refuses to repent. That man refuses to let go. And that man justifies his violence towards other people. So she understood that the way the direction her life went into was caused by her father. Yes, she had her own responsibility on the way, but nevertheless she was pushed in that direction by her father, by his neglect. So she acknowledged, okay, it happens, we cannot change it, but he does not want to repent, he does not want to give up his own negativity, so she decided this man is dangerous, I cannot have him around. She lowered the contact, and till that moment she didn't have any contact with him anymore. So that the healing process would work out inside of her. Now, I just gave an example of a 4-year-old girl becoming a 25-year-old woman, and for 21 years there's a poltergeist in her life. And there's another thing that becomes a shocker onto her. She began to think, well, it was me, my family background was messed up, but now I'm delivered at 25. But hold on a minute. A few years later, when she's in her 30s, it gets through to her that everyone around her, during her upbringing, also during her young adult life, had poltergeists. The only thing is, most people were not aware of it. Some did, but they just didn't want to repent. And look, there are people out there who just don't want to repent, and they embrace the negativity that has been charged onto them, and it becomes their negativity, something they feel attached to. That happens. And now listen. About this poltergeist thing, why am I talking about this is because there's another dimension to it that a lot of people don't realize. A poltergeist will only get worse when time passes by. It won't diminish, it will increase. You see, a poltergeist, as I mentioned before, it describes a situation when there is movement, a noise, a disturbance that cannot be explained naturally. And what that implies that you are often not aware that it's a poltergeist. A poltergeist can even cause hallucinations to people around you, because understand this. When someone is charged with negative energy, the negative energy will impact how their brain operates. Okay? And look, in this story, let's call this woman Eva, or Eve in English. I'll say Eva because that's Dutch. Eva is not aware of the poltergeist, but she's not the only one with the poltergeist. Everyone around her had the poltergeist. Only some people were delivered at a young age. Okay? When someone is charged with negative energy and that negative energy is attached to their bodies, when their bodies become addicted to that psychic flow, their brains are affected. That implies that those people will not be able to process the data that their five senses enter, that enter through their senses. Their brains won't be able to process them well. Let me repeat that to make sure I've explained it well. When someone is charged with negative energy, their brains will not be capable to process all data that enters through the five senses in a right manner. Okay? For example, you can look up for this in Japan. I'm gonna give a case now. In Japan, during the 90s, there was this phenomenon of people using their mobile phones to make obscure photographs of women. That means, you get what I'm saying, putting phones under their dresses and making pictures. A disturbing trend in Japan. It happened. So one company decided, we are designing a phone, and in this phone, automatically, whenever you take a picture, there is this sound wave that's released from the phone in such a frequency that your ears and therefore your brain will notice it. So it will be impossible to make spy pictures in that manner. So they did, and this phone was released. Of course, they never told this on the news or in the media, and people were caught when they were making those spy pictures. But hold up. That sound that was released from that phone, it had a double frequency. You had a high frequency and you had a low frequency. The high frequency is a frequency that your ears will process as a sound wave, and that's the frequency you will hear. But the lower frequency will also be received by your ears and also be processed by your brain, but it's not a frequency that you will hear directly, but it's a frequency that your brains will store as information. It's synthetic. You understand? So what they did was, on television, they went with a mobile phone with this frequency, and they played the frequency for people through the speakers. They played this frequency, and they asked people, random people, also children, diverse people in Japan. They asked, what do you hear when you hear this sound? Most people, when they listen to the sounds, they said it says Tota no Kayo. That's some kind of Japanese word it was. But there were people that heard hi hi hi. That's what they were hearing. Now hi hi hi, it's basically a version of XXX, which in numerology is 666. Nevertheless, I wanted to reveal that to you, just so you will understand what's going on there. Now, the hi 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 was a low frequency that normally you don't hear. You cannot hear it, but your brain will receive it. Okay? The high frequency is a frequency that you will hear. And most people, they hear the high frequency. That's a natural part, as everyone does. But the lower artificial frequency, there were people, even children, that only heard the low frequency. They didn't even hear the natural high frequency. And it was quite weird. And the thing is, In the show, in the Japanese show, they try to explain it with some kind of bullcrap. They try to explain it why this was the case, but even the explanation wasn't a satisfactional explanation. Even on the show, they admitted it. The thing is, I want to use this case to explain to you what's going on here. People that are negatively laden through psychic attacks, because in the example, in the illustration I gave of Eva, when she was 4 till she was 25, then in her 30s, what she encountered from the time she was 4 years old was persistent psychic attacks by her father. That's what it is. Now, she became laden with that energy. Her body became addicted to it. So without her being aware of it, she felt comfortable around that negative environment. So unconsciously, she always had this tendency to look up that negative environment, because she was accustomed to. Okay, that's why she felt threatened by other men, because it was a reflection that referred back to her father. And the thing is, when a child has been subjected to trauma, if there are other actors in her life that compensate for the neglect of the other, then the effects will not be that intense. For example, Eva had a friend during childhood, Cereline. Cereline went through something similar, but there were tons of other male figures around that treated her with kindness. So yes, there was an effect upon her, but the effect was not that intense as with Eva, because, well, she was kind of isolated. Okay, now let's continue. When someone is charged with negativity and their body is attached to it, their bodies are going to tune in with negative frequency. That implies that, for example, that in that frequency of that mobile phone, the lower frequency was high. People whose bodies are attached to a negative frequency will hear high very clearly. They will hear it, and often they will not even notice the natural frequency. Why? That's an indication of what's going on with them. Okay, now why did I give this case study of this mobile phone in Japan? Was it to amuse you? No. Look, let's go further with this. There are people out there with whom you cannot communicate in a healthy manner. Just as with that mobile phone case, there are people that hear hi instead of tokonogayo, the normal high frequency. There are people out there that, because they are charged and they are addicted to a negative flow of energy, the first thing they will notice when you're speaking are the bad things about you. It can be that you're dressed perfectly, but there's a small tiny spot somewhere on a shirt of yours. They will notice that tiny spot, and they will totally forget all the things you've said. They did hear what you say, they're not stupid, but they are attached to that one inconsistency on your clothes more than they are to what you have to say. Often such people, they begin to haunt other people. Such people often become upset with others without them being able to explain why they are upset. You see? And there are people who just don't want to hear any explanation. They just feel a certain way, and because they feel a certain way, they act a certain way, and they perceive things a certain way, they have a certain judgment a certain way, and they just want everyone to validate that. You see? And such people, man, it doesn't matter how kind, how straightforward, or how well you treat them, they will always process things as an insult, or as an offense, or as a threat. Why? They are haunted. And unless they are delivered those people are going to haunt you. They will drag you into their haunting. And what I've revealed about the thing of frequencies is used in music also. Not all music, don't get me wrong. There are music that's occultly, that's demonically inspired. What I mean with that, after the recording is finished in the studios, the producer, who is a cult member, often part of some death cult or some witch cult, he will go with the recording, he will conjure up Nephilim spirits, a type of demon spirits, and those spirits then will calm down while he's conjuring them up. Those demons will listen to the recording, and those demons will tell that producer which frequency he has to add into the music, and he will do it. And afterwards, he will call back the artist. He will record one more time, and then he will finish the mixing of the record, and then it will be sent to the record label. The people at the record label were often in the same cult. They will accept it, and then it's released onto the market. And also on radio stations where you also have people into the occult who are part of sex, they will play that music often, because if you hear a certain sound, often you will become attached to it. And then you have this music, this song, being played often in supermarkets and in public spaces, that people begin to like it. But you'll notice something. There are people listening to that song, and they just listen to the song, and it's just a song. And there are people listening to the song, and the song begins to impact their life. Let's say that the song talks about, the song is about some kind of sexual haunting, some love affair. But let's say in the lower frequencies of the song, there are hidden messages about hatred, about fighting, about being angry and all of that. You will have people hearing and listening to that song, and they'll begin to act violently. Why? Because they are attached to the negative flow of energy. That's why they will notice that negative flow. And because they're receptive to it, it will grow into them. But someone else who has a less intense poltergeist will listen to the song, and they might not be affected at all. You see, that's why I often, and this recording, I gave an illustration of a woman called Ava. What Ava endured was spiritual conditioning at the hands of her father and also of other people that she later encountered in her life. Well, I'm going to stop this recording now. I'll make more videos where I will go in more depth into this subject. And I received some questions that I will try to answer within the following videos. Some I tried already to answer in this video. Just remember, as I mentioned before in my short series about ancestral spirits, everyone during this lifetime has something that haunts them. Okay? As a believer, automatically Satan will haunt you because he's the enemy of anointings on your life. Okay? And Jesus was persecuted, so will you be persecuted. Someone that's not a believer will also have things haunting them. Okay? There is no one during his lifetime that has nothing haunting them. If even Jesus himself as human had things haunting him, then who are we to think we won't have anything haunting us? Of course, there are some people that are haunted more intensely than others. You have diversity in the intensity. You have diversity in the intensity of how people are haunted. But hauntings happen. So when you look at television, by the way, television is a form of programming often. You can watch television, but you need to be careful and you need to have discernment. What happens is when you look at movies that are horror movies or horror shows, they always tell you that there's a certain place is haunted. They'll always locate it to a certain place. But seldom will those movies reveal people that are haunted. Because listen, those people that produce those movies are often Satanists or into the occult themselves, so they will reveal truths to you, they will reveal facts to you, but they won't reveal everything to you. That's why those movies are a deception. Okay? I'm not saying those movies cannot reveal truths to you. They can reveal things to you. They can be a source of information, but nevertheless, it's not everything. It's not the whole picture. And for you, some of you who are listening to this recording now, you have people in your life around you that are haunted. And you often ask yourself why you can't get along with those people. Well, now you know it. They are haunted. And there's one thing. If you're in your 30s now, or in your 20s, and those people are haunted, now listen, those people are of age. They need to stop denying and stop repressing pain and stop acknowledging things. Because as long as they are in denial, the haunting will increase. And you are around there, so those evil spirits that are following them will do whatever they can to get the same hold of you. And when you are a believer, demons are going to do an extra attempt to get a hold of you. Especially because you are a believer. So if you have people around you who are haunted, they don't have to be aware they are haunted. But just like with every poltergeist, you will notice that things don't add up. Well, if those people remain in denial that things don't add up, and they decide to use some kind of mythology, some kind of excuse to excuse the inconsistencies around them, then those individuals, I really don't want to say this, but I have to say it. It's a painful conclusion, but they are agents of darkness. That's what they are. They are agents of darkness without being aware of it. Why? Because they are advancing and protecting the agenda of the poltergeist by being in denial. Okay? They're not sold out inaugurated witches, wizards, and warlocks. They're not that. They are random people, but nevertheless, they are in agreement with darkness by denying the darkness, by excusing the darkness, or by giving in to some kind of ritual to be released from the darkness, which is the same thing. You're using darkness to drive out darkness. Of course, you should pray for such people, but listen, let's be realistic. If someone, in the illustration I gave in the beginning of this video about Eva was willing to get rid of the toxic energies. She was not aware of everything was going on, but somewhere deep inside she realized this is wrong, and she wanted to get rid of it. She did it during her teenage years on her own strength, but it didn't work. But after she received the love of the truth, she became saved. She became delivered. But listen to what I'm saying. There are people similar to Eva, men and women, that simply don't care. They just want to be relieved and released from the tensions, but they don't care about anything else. Yes, they were victimized, sometimes severely. That, however, does not exclude them from being responsible. That implies they have to acknowledge what happens to them, acknowledge that it is wrong, and surrender to the love of the truth by receiving the truth so that they are saved and delivered. But a lot of people don't want to do that. You see, some people, when they realize they are targeted by darkness, they embrace the darkness and justify the darkness. We have such people also. So be realistic. If an individual is persisting into whatever is haunting them, then obey what the Lord told you and distance yourself from that individual. Why? Because if you don't distance yourself from them, they will drag you into their negativity, and probably you'll die before your time, literally, or you'll receive attacks like crazy, and you might end up, or no, I'm saying not that you might, you will end up in places you never intended to end up. You see, just cutting someone off also is not the solution. If someone is haunted and their haunting has bothered you, then you acting out against an individual for bothering you, that's also negativity. You need to repent also. That being said, y'all, be blessed. Shalom.